Welcome to this free immigration help channel. In this video I will try to help you to apply for the K1 visa, the Fiance visa. Now we're gonna start with the most important part. Even if you do not understand any steps that are described in this video, the most important part is where you can find exactly what kind of information you need to apply for this type of visa. So we're gonna start with the website. It's the official US Citizenship and Immigration Services website. It's called uscis.gov. This is where you can find all of the information you need. I mean, talking about the forms, we are talking about where to file your papers, how much it costs, everything you need. So I will help you find it right now. As you see, we are on the home page of the website. In order to find this form, we're gonna go into forms, and we're gonna click on all forms. You can click over here or in this area right here, doesn't really matter. And we're looking for a form I-129F. F like Frank, which stands for fiance. All right, let's see. I-129, as you can see, petition for non-immigrant worker. So it's a part of the same kind of category. Only we need, see, there's a CW, CWR, F. This is what we need. I-129F, petition for alien fiance. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what does this application entail. Basically, what this application entails is that you are petitioning for somebody outside of the United States of America. You are a US citizen. This petition is only for US citizens, okay? And you are, as a US citizen, you are petitioning for somebody from the outside of the United States of America who is not a US citizen to come get the visa and come down to the United States of America for the purposes to get married. All right, you're bringing the fiance from outside of the United States of America. So this is really what this entails. Very straightforward. Here you're gonna need to download a PDF reader, whatever it can be, Adobe, doesn't really matter, because these two forms are in PDF. There is no way at this very moment, it's April 2022, there is no way to file this application online, unfortunately, which would be better, but it's all right. Maybe it's gonna come someday soon. So we're gonna open the actual form I-129F fiance. I'm gonna open it in a new tab, and you will see your PDF will open up. Download this PDF to your computer so that you can have it there and you can start filling it out, because actually here you can actually fill it up on the keyboard, most of the stuff, which I highly recommend doing that instead of actually writing it yourself, typing it up. That way it's much easier to avoid someone misreading your handwriting and making a mistake. And then another thing you're gonna need, you're gonna open the instructions. That's the instructions for form I-129F, and you're gonna definitely need to use it. Just going through the application form, you're gonna have to go through the instructions. I would recommend reading them regardless, just so that you have the idea of what you're doing, what you need. All of your questions can be answered with this form. And then quickly I will go through the rest of the stuff here, and then we will turn to the instructions. So edition date, as of today, April 2022, the edition date is, as you can see, July 23, 2020. All right, so if you are filling it out, few months, 6 months, a year from me making this video, make sure to see it's the same edition date and there wasn't anything changes, just to make sure it's updated. Now, where to file? These are the addresses where you are going to be filing your paper application form with all the evidence, all the stuff. I want to note here, very important, there are two different addresses. One is specifically for USPS, okay, and one is specifically for FedEx, UPS, DHL deliveries. I highly recommend using the USPS instead of everything else. Yes, I know this is a PO box, but in my experience, this is much more reliable and in most cases, surprisingly faster than the FedEx, UPS, and DHL stuff. Okay, now read through all of this. I'm not going to concentrate on it that much. Filing fee is $535 as of today. Checklist, this is what you're going to need, the initial evidence. All right, this is going to be filed with your let me close all this, with your application. Okay, so there are a few main types of evidence that you're going to need. You're going to need some evidence to prove that you are in fact a US citizen. That can be copy of the birth certificate if you were born here, copy of your naturalization certificate, which if you are an immigrant and you got your US citizenship, you were naturalized, copy of Form FS-240 in very rare cases, a birth abroad, a copy of unexpired US passport if you have US passport, an original statement from US. You don't have to provide all of this, just part of these, just having a birth certificate, or for example just having a copy of your naturalization certificate and your US passport is plenty sufficient. Okay, now the next one is also a very important one, is the evidence you and your fiance legally terminated any previous marriages, if applicable, meaning that if you were married before, you have to make sure that you provide all of these divorce documents, that everything was finalized through the court and that's it. There's no previous active marriages. This is very important. If you were married, you need to make sure that you have all of that: divorce decree, annulment order, or death certificate. Okay, another one you're gonna need is just one color passport style picture, evidence of legal name change, if anything, if you ever change your name, evidence to support an International Marriage Broker Regulations Act waiver if you need that, probably not, but just in case. Now, we are in this video talking about specifically K1. We are not talking about the K3, the spouse. You have not married yet. We're talking about specifically fiance. K3 will be very similar, but we will just concentrate for the purposes of this video. We're gonna concentrate on K1 for fiance. You're not married yet. You're planning to, but you're not married just yet. Okay, so if this is the case, this is what you're gonna need. Evidence you and your fiance intend to marry within 90 days of your admission into the United States. Well, not your, but your fiance's admission into the United States as a K1 non-immigrant. Okay, so what that means is that you will have to provide some kind of plans. Maybe that's a reservation for the restaurant. Maybe it is some kind of trip that you're planning, honeymoon trip, whatever. That doesn't really matter. Maybe it's some kind of conversation between you two where you, or maybe it's what is it called, the engagement party, right? Pictures, if you met your fiance beforehand, right, in person, and you propose to her or him, well, probably her, in person, and now you have all of these pictures, you have all of this documentation that you guys are officially engaged, right? That is what you are providing, that is what you are showing. Now, the second one is evidence you met your fiance in person within 2 years of your filing your form I-129F. Now, this might be a little bit of a complication for some people, because some people who have long distance relationships, they are communicating with someone abroad, they are very serious, they are whatever, but they have not met just yet. They have serious intentions to one another, they do want to meet, and in fact they want to use this particular K1 visa that we're talking about in this video in order to meet and determine whether they are a good match and they want to continue to to finalize their decision and get married, right? As you can see, this creates a little bit of complication with those situations, because you actually have to meet within 2 years. Now, it is not a problem for those where your potential fiance came here to the United States of America, you guys hung out, whatever, you made your decision, everything good. It's also good if you yourself went to their country and you hung out, or maybe both of you went somewhere in another country. Now, if this is the case, in those situations, you're going to have to provide I-94 records, travel documentation, previous visas, places where you've met, how much time you spent together, maybe some pictures for evidence. That would be very helpful as well to establish the fact that you guys went somewhere, you met somewhere, because after all, that person can have a visa, came here, well, doesn't mean much, right? If how are you gonna prove that you guys actually met? Well, if there's a picture together, now it's obvious proof that you guys met. Just keep that in mind. However, if you guys never met before, now this is another conversation. There we go. Continuing reading. If you haven't met within 2 years, submit evidence that meeting in person would violate strict and long-established customs of your fiance's foreign culture or social practice, or would be an extreme hardship on the petitioner. Okay, what does that mean? In some cultures, some religions, some customs, it is not appropriate to meet up with the second half, let's call it that, right? Potential second half before the marriage. For example, like the culture, dating culture, whatever culture here in the United States, where it's okay for a man and woman to live together and then get married in 1 year, 2 years, 5, 10 years, they live together, doesn't matter. Some countries, it is completely inappropriate. In those situations, obviously, you won't be able to have that kind of case where you guys actually met in the past 2 years. In those situations, you have to provide the evidence that this is the case, that the customs, that religion, whatever, is in the way. How do you do that? You can start searching on Google, on other search engines, whatever you use, for local customs, cultures. There's a lot of reports, World Report out there. There's some world organizations that create these certain types of reports on certain specific areas, right? Culture, employment, social, economical, whatever, different infrastructures, right? You will be able to find something like that. Another thing that can be useful is also providing some information from them, from their family, and whatever. So if you are communicating with that person, obviously there are relatives, there are whoever that can submit an actual notarized affidavit saying that it is inappropriate, we're not going to allow, for example, our daughter to meet this guy from the United States of America because it is inappropriate in our culture. The only time they can meet is if they are actually engaged. Boom. This is good evidence to submit. And finally, one thing that I wanted to last thing I wanted to mention here, in case if none of that applies, right? Customs, not a problem. Religion, not a problem. Extreme hardship on the petitioner. And in the world that we live in today, it is quite an extreme hardship to be able to travel around the world. There are restrictions everywhere. There are sanctions everywhere. There are unnecessary bureaucratic problems created by these governments everywhere throughout the whole world, right? We had for 2 years, we had this flu that everybody was not traveling because the flights were canceled, whatever was canceled, and now we have this war that is happening, and it's only growing worse and worse, right? We're not going to get into this whole political conversation, but you see how all of these situations that happen different times in different places in the world can create these hardships for people to be able to travel somewhere. She cannot come here to meet you. You cannot go there to meet her. She's having trouble getting a visa, so you have no other option but to actually file for the K1 fiance visa to bring her on that visa in order to be able to figure it out whether you guys going to get married in 90 days or not. This is going to be the case for you. The hardship that you're not able to travel. Okay, in those situations, obviously, again, you can use all of these world reports that you can find, situation, for example, if the person is, let's say, at this very moment from the country where there is war going on, right? She's not able to leave the country, she's not able to travel. Obviously, a news article or something like that would be sufficient for the USCIS officer to see, yes, okay, this person is from there, we know what's going on, this is the truth. Another thing that you're going to need to provide in all of these situations that I've just mentioned is a written statement. Now, written statement is going to be your explanation, kind of like an essay, who you are, who she is, where you guys met, how is it going, how long you've been talking to, where are you? Where is she? Did you guys ever meet? No. If not, explain the situation. Explain the hardship, explain the culture, explain the religion, whatever you have to explain. This is done in a written statement. Now, I have done a video on a written statement. It was specifically for asylum, but this is going to be very similar. So check it out, and hopefully it will be helpful for you to kind of get the idea of what you are doing. And then, of course, we have some special instructions. If this is applicable, make sure to go through. Basically don't include anything like CDs, DVDs. Don't include no DNA. Don't include no graphic photos of intimate relations. Obviously, but looks like immigration USIS, they had to add it there because somebody actually did send them that. Like, you wanna prove that we are together? Well, there you go. This is our proof right here. No, don't do that, please. This is inappropriate. Okay, so let's move to the instructions. We're gonna start with the instructions. I will explain briefly the instructions, how to read them, what you need, and then we're gonna go into the form itself and we'll finish it up. Okay, so the purpose of I-129F. Obviously, your fiance as a K-1 non-immigrant, so she may enter the United States to marry you and pursue adjustment of status to lawful permanent residence. Obviously, because if they get married to you as a U.S. citizen, now they can claim their green card, their residence. Okay, read through the whole thing. I recommend highly reading through the whole thing before even starting the application. Who may file Form I-129F? Okay, this is if you're a U.S. citizen, you and your fiance are legally free to marry, intend to marry within 90 days. Makes sense upon admission to the United States. So she enters the United States, or he. Let's do it she in this case, just in case, because I said no wrong impression. Yeah, she enters the United States, all right, and within the 90 days of her entering the United States, you guys get married. Okay, that's it. This is very important because this is kind of like entering on any other visa, right? You're entering on certain kind of visa. What are you doing on that visa? How long you gonna be doing? In this case, 90 days. Within 90 days, you're getting married. Very important. Okay, have met each other in person. Now, we already talked about that. You have filed or are filing Form I-130 on behalf of your spouse. Spouse is going to be the K3. We're not going to talk about it, but read it just in case. Now, general instructions. We're going to talk about the signature. We're going to talk about the filing fee, which I already said. I think it was $535, something like that. Biometric service fee. Okay, so biometric service fee. This is going to be it will tell you whether you do need to file that biometric service fee or not. Basically what it is you are paying for the fingerprints and picture taking. Most of the times you have to do it, sometimes you don't. We'll find out if we do need to do that later. Obviously your evidence, biometric services agreement, translations, most likely going to be applicable to you. You'll have to file translations. They do have to be actually. So for example, if you're submitting birth certificate of your fiance and she is let's say from Bulgaria, right? So her birth certificate is in Bulgarian, so you would have to do a certified translation to that and actually file it with the translation so that USCIS can understand what it is. Okay, now this right here is where it starts on how to fill out I-129F. Now if you are printing, if you are writing, you make sure you use the black ink. It is very, very important. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, if you are you are filling out yourself I-129, you have to make sure you are filing a paper form. In online, usually you don't need to do that, but on paper form you have to do it. Don't leave any blank spaces. Every blank space, if it's not applicable, put an N-A, not applicable, or none. Very, very important. Don't leave it blank. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen the applications coming back to the petitioner with request to correct just those stupid blank spaces. Waste of time. You're gonna waste like a whole month because of that. Don't do that. Don't leave blank spaces. And obviously answer all questions fully and accurately. Okay, so specific instructions, this is straightforward. Each item has its explanation, your name, your social security, your address, all of that sort of stuff. So for that, we're just gonna go straight into the application and we'll start filling it out. So your alien registration, if any, if you are an immigrant, you probably have that alien registration number. If you're already a citizen, you don't really need to use that, so forget about that. Put the social security, because you definitely have that, and then obviously you're going to select which one is going to be spouse or fiance. In our current video that we're doing, it's definitely going to be fiance. You don't have to worry about the USCIS online account number, by the way. I know it creates a lot of confusion. Sometimes when you register for your online account with USCIS, they send you a number. Sometimes they don't. I don't know why it happens, but it happens. If you didn't get one when you created online account, that's fine, don't worry about it. If you do have it, again, it doesn't really matter if you put it here or not, because this is a paper application anyway, so it doesn't really matter. If you're filing to classify your spouse as a K3, have you filed Form I-30? This is not applicable, so we're gonna leave that. This is the check boxes. You can leave them blank. That's fine. All of these boxes where you fill out information, don't leave them blank. So, family name, we're gonna do John, and then as always, wait, I'm sorry, this is Doe. This is gonna be the last name, and then John is gonna be the first name. Middle name, we're gonna put middle John, middle Doe, and then of course other names used if there was any other name. If not, not applicable. Not applicable. Not applicable. This is what I mean. Don't leave blank spaces. If there's no middle name, not applicable. In care of, this is going to be your mailing address, blah blah blah. John Doe, this is going to John Doe, can't spell. Obviously, address, street number and name, apartment, suite number, whatever. If there is not applicable. You don't leave it blank. I'm not gonna fill out all of these. You understand it yourself. Zip, province. If province is not applicable, not applicable. Very straightforward. Is your current mailing address the same as your physical? Yes. Okay. Your address history. This is going to be the last two addresses before the current one. So you're gonna fill that out. Obviously, date from, date to. Very important. You might have to do some digging. Employment history. Employer 1, employer 2. Information about you, employment start date, employment end date if applicable. Now, we're moving on further. Important stuff, gender, male, date of birth, whatever, 01, 1990, John Doe, current marital status. Now, if you're putting divorced or widowed, well, it can be two at the same time, either divorced or widowed, you will have to provide, if it's divorced, then you will have to provide the divorce decree, like we discussed. If widowed, then you will have to provide the death certificate of your spouse that you lost. So we're going to put single. Obviously, it's not going to, unless it's, of course, married to the current spouse, the K3, but this is not what we're talking about here. Now, all your birth information, parents information, parent 1, your mom, your dad, your mom, doesn't really matter which order, whoever you love more, no, it doesn't really matter. Name of previous spouse, if any, if not applicable. Well, you can actually, you see, this is another thing good that it came up. As you can see, some of these are grayed out that you can type up on the computer. Some of these are not grayed out and you can't type anything in. In those cases, when you're going to be printing out the application, which you will do regardless in order to sign and date it, that's when you put it not applicable by hand. Still do it. Very important. Your citizenship information, you are U.S. citizen through, alright, so if it's going to be birth in the United States, you're going to provide birth certificate. Naturalization, obviously you're going to be providing your naturalization certificate. Have you obtained a certificate of naturalization or certificate of citizenship in your own name? Yes. All right. Moving further. Now the certificate number. This is, again, you will have to write down by hand. If not applicable, put not applicable. Have you ever filed your Form I-129F for any other beneficiary? Okay. If no, then no. If yes, then you will have to mention their name if you filed that form before. Now, provide all U.S. states and foreign countries in which you have resided since your 18th birthday. Okay, so this is where you're gonna be all of this information since your 18th birthday. All right, residence 1 and residence 2, only 2 of them. That's it. Now, if it's all in the United States, then that's fine. 2 states, 2 last states since your 18th birthday. Now, information about your beneficiary. This is where you put the information about your fiance that you are inviting here, United States of America. So it's gonna be, well, not Doe, Brown, Gwen, I guess. I don't know. Middle name, not applicable. Alien registration number, if any. U.S. Social Security, if any. Date of birth, gender, marital status, city, town, village of birth. Some of them can click, for whatever reason, can click on this, but cannot click on that. It's fine, no big deal. When you print it out, make sure you go back through it and select whatever you were not able to select on your computer. It's a little bit glitchy, it looks like. Now, other names used, if any. Information about your beneficiary. This is going to be their mailing address. That's going to be their address history. As you can see, now you're doing the same exact thing you're doing for yourself. You're doing it for the person that you are inviting. Your beneficiary's employment history, information about your beneficiary, employer, whatever, all of that sort of stuff. Employment start date, employment end date, parent of your beneficiary, parent 1, parent 2, other information. Has your beneficiary ever been previously married? If no, then no. If yes, then you put their spouse's information here in these empty boxes. Moving on, information about your beneficiary. Date authorized stay expired or will expire as shown on Form I-94. That is in case if they already have the Form I-94. If not, then fine. Just put, yes, you guessed it, not applicable. Passport number, travel document number, country of issuance for passport or travel document, expiration date for the passport. Does your beneficiary have any children? If yes, then you're going to fill out all their children information. If no, then just leave no and put, yes, you guessed it, not applicable into all of these empty areas. Okay, moving on. Address in the United States where your beneficiary intends to live. Now, hopefully that address is going to be your address because you're inviting your fiance after all, and you don't want your fiance to live somewhere random place, right? Doesn't make sense. So you put your address here or whatever she's going to stay. Your address, your beneficiary's physical address abroad. This is going to be their current address where they live right now. Your beneficiary's name and address in his or her native alphabet. Now, this one is very important. This one is a native alphabet. So, for example, if we're talking about somebody from Russia, they're gonna have their name, address, whatever in Russian alphabet, which is Cyrillic, right? So this is how you're gonna copy the Cyrillic. Just print it as good as you can into there. Obviously, if you don't have Cyrillic keyboard, which I do, right? So I can use that, but if you can't, that's fine. Just print it out and make sure to fill it out by hand. That's okay. Information about your beneficiary. Moving on. Is your fiance related to you? Wow, that's a difficult question. What does it mean related? Well, is she your family? Well, hopefully not, because that would be kind of wrong. So hopefully the answer is no. Unless, of course, the beneficiary is your spouse. Then I guess she is kind of related to you. But this is not the case in our current situation, so I'm going to select no. Provide the nature and degree of the relationship. Okay. This is where things get weird. For example, third cousin or maternal uncle. Hopefully this has nothing to do with you. If it is, it's pretty weird, but for me, I'll just leave it not applicable. Moving on to the 53. Have you and your fiancés met in person during the 2 years immediately before filing this petition? Okay, in our situation, we're gonna make it extremely difficult. We're gonna say no. All right. So let's read what they tell us. If you answered yes in the 53 number, describe the circumstances of your in-person meeting in item 54. So this is where you're gonna describe if it's yes. yes, we met in Moscow for 2 months. We lived together in this hotel, and we've been going on dates, we've been going on cruise, we've been going on whatever, we've been doing this, we've been doing that. Great. Okay, so but in my situation it's no. So if you answer no, explain your reasons for requesting an exemption from the in-person meeting requirement. Now, see here, when you answer no, it already suggests that you are asking for exemption. And you are asking for exemption because it is the requirement for you to meet your fiance in the past 2 years. This is very important. So what are we gonna do in this case? There is a war currently happening in the country where my fiance resides. It is not possible for me to get a tourist visa to visit that country. But of course this is not enough space, so what we're gonna say is, please see attached statement for more details. Okay, well, we're not gonna fit for more details. We'll just say statement. Even better, what you can do, you can say attached, exhibit, whatever. Let's say A for info. I'm gonna abbreviate. Well, it didn't fit anyway. There you go. So exhibit A meaning is just like, for example, any kind of documentation, exhibit A, exhibit B, you are creating kind of a reference point to a certain part in the evidence that you are providing. Okay, so in this case, exhibit A is going to be that written statement where you explain in details that hardship, that you are not able to just travel somewhere and she's not able to just randomly travel somewhere and you guys meet up because of certain situations, this situation, that situation, explaining all of it in detail. This is brief, and your statement is going to be in detail. Very important. Okay, moving on. International marriage broker. Did you find your beneficiary through the services of international marriage broker? This is kind of like a dating agency. In our case, we'll just say no, and then we'll fill up. You can fill it up on the computer here. Just make sure to put not applicable, not applicable, not applicable. But if this is the case, this is where you fill it out. Again, this is all about the IMB. Just put a non-applicable everywhere. Consular processing information. Now this is where your beneficiary will be applying for the for her visa in the US Embassy. In which country? City or town? Country. For example, Poland, Warsaw. Yeah, I hope that's how you pronounce. I don't know if this how. No, I think you pronounce it like that. I'm sorry if I did a mistake, but this is just an example. Right? Where is she gonna go? Which embassy, which US embassy, in which country and city she will go. This is the information that you will put. Now, part 3 is all that stuff. Have you ever committed a crime? Have you ever been a terrorist? Have you ever did something terrible, drugs, whatever? Just go through, read each one, and answer no. If yes, then well, then yes. If it's yes, I was acting in self-defense. I'll just go through it, read it, and answer it truthfully. Now, multiple filer waiver request information. This is rarely applicable, but if this is applicable, make sure you read it, you read the instructions on it, and you select whatever you need. In our case, it's going to be not applicable. Beneficiary is my spouse, or I'm not a multiple filer. In our case, we're not a multiple filer. Unless there is, let's see, multiple filer, prior permanent resident, restraining orders, or criminal conviction. See, we don't have that. Multiple filer, prior permanent restraining order. We don't have that. Multiple filer, no permanent restraining orders or convictions for a specified offense. Again, we don't need that. Leave that alone. Not applicable. Moving on. Biographic information. This is going to be your race, whatever they do. Hispanic, not Hispanic. For whatever reason it matters. Race, white, Asian, black, for whatever reason that matters. Height, maybe it matters, I don't know. Weight, don't ask me. Eye color, hair color, whatever, all your biometric information. Petitioner statement, contact information. This is where you're going to be certifying that this is you, this is really you, this is not anybody else. And if there was somebody else, there is their statement. So here we go. I can read and understand English. Or an interpreter, put his name there, helped you do this. But in this case, I can read and understand English and I did it. Or at my request, somebody prepared it for you. Prepare. It can be an immigration attorney, it can be your friend who knows what they're doing, but I recommend doing it yourself so that you can read it, pay attention to everything, all the details, and do it as properly, as carefully as possible. Obviously, your petition contact information. Now, this is going to be the declaration certification that everything you're providing is true, you're not lying, you're not doing any of that. This is going to be your signature. Obviously, you're going to print it out first and then sign it. Date, you can type it up if you want to, or you can just write it down, doesn't matter. Interpreter, if there was one. Interpreter's mailing address, if there was an interpreter, this is all the interpreter. And then there's a preparer. There's a difference between interpreter and the preparer. If you don't have, just put not applicable everywhere. Yes, it applies to this as well. All and not applicable. And then obviously prepare a signature, but we don't have that. Now, this little area is for additional information. We're not going to use it at all for our statement and stuff like that, because we're going to actually type up an actual separate written statement and submit it along with all the other evidence provided. Now, again, in order to submit everything, you would have to, don't forget about the filing fee, all right, $535 right here. And of course, where to file, you're going to be filing, this is going to be your address right here, USAS in Dallas, Texas. So hopefully this video was useful and helpful for you to properly file Form I-129F. Now, I know it might be overwhelming. I completely understand it. It is a little bit overwhelming where you just, for the first time, you're opening up this website, you're opening up all these forms and then all these requirements, all of these details. It might be a little bit scary, a little bit overwhelming. So it is okay to do it with an attorney, to hire an immigration attorney to do it for you. But even if you do hire an immigration attorney to do that for you, I highly recommend going through all of this yourself, reading all of it yourself, and even if attorney fills it out all for you, making sure that you go through the whole application, all the evidence, one by one, and make sure that everything is correct, there are no mistakes, there is nothing missing. Most of the mistakes, most of the delays that happen are because of really, really small, silly things that could have been avoided. So hopefully this video was useful for you. If you have any questions, you can always ask me in the comments below. I get a lot of questions in the comments, so it's very hard to keep up with everything, but sometimes I do videos where I just answer the questions in the comments. So make sure to subscribe and stick around to see those videos where I specifically answer the questions. So thank you very much again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.